Welcome to Coach's Corner, everybody. Thanks for watching this show. I'm your host, Paul Tripoli. Coach Trip to my players. I put 20 years in middle school, high school football. Got a good friend of mine, special guest, teammate, Russ Wood. Russ, man, it's great to see you, brother.
Great to see you, Trip. Always good watching your show, and it's an honor to be on it.
Oh, my gosh, man. We got so much to talk about, and let's start with this. Born and raised in Elba, Alabama. You weren't very big, barely 200-pound defensive end, not especially fast or especially strong, but you overachieved. You made the last tackle of Coach Bryant's last sack, too, of Coach Bryant's career. I want to say you made a great move off the offensive tackle, but I don't think he picked you up. I don't think he got a hand on you.
Well, if the truth be known, Trip, and if you remember, one of our favorite blitz plays, TB blitz, strong safety blitz. I'm lost you there, my little stand. You there, Trip?
Yep.
Okay, sorry about that. Yep. But anyway, that we had, Illinois, they were one of the first teams that ran a split offense where they only had one back. And when we ran that, on that particular play, it was Tommy Wilcox, he was the strong safety, and it was the TB blitz was when we came all strong side. Well, they came from the other side. The tight end was on the other side, 3 wide, 1 back. And the truth be known, my assignment was to cover the running back who went on a flare route.
Oh, gosh.
And I was over the tackle uncovered, and for some reason I made a split decision. Coach Hale, may he rest in peace, he was our position coach. We laughed about it the next week, even though that was my last game. And he said, you got a minus on the play, but a plus on the side. Because we got graded for the play. And Tony Easton's first round pick, if he looks over his left shoulder and does the dump pass, I probably would have been not the GOAT, but I would have been whatever you call the other side of the GOAT, They would have the first down and, moved on down the field and,
Yeah, right.
But yeah, I was uncovered, and right before I hit him, I was singing da 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 ESPN play of the day. So no, I'm kidding.
Holy cow, man. I didn't even see that back flare out, but his eyes were on the other side of the field. You got there in like less than 2 seconds. So
yeah, I got away with it. But if you watch, somebody posted the video recently. I got a bunch of hits from it and from that play. And if you watch after I get up and do my Gastineau, which we weren't allowed to do, which Coach Hale out on the sideline, 26 seconds to go in Coach Bryant's career. Coach Hale at the Senior Bowl, he ran the Senior Bowl. I was at a Senior Bowl dinner one, and it was about 1,500 people there. And he told this story. He said, with Coach Bryant's 26 seconds to go in his career, he said, my defensive end made a great sack, but instead of celebrating, he's chewing me out because I got up and danced, and he was chewing me out, Coach Hale said, because didn't you teach him? Because we were taught less than a minute to lay on the player, right? To get a couple. Right. Who needs another second other than Auburn, right? So.
Oh my gosh!
If you watch that video, everybody's and Coach Bryant is he's in Coach Hale's ear. And finally, Coach Hale said, I had to tell him, Coach, the quarterback's hurt. They had to call timeout. And that's the only reason, 1, he didn't pull me out of the game, and 2, he quit fussing. It was 26 seconds in his career. He's still coaching at a high level.
Oh my gosh, what a game that was. It must have been the hardest hitting game I've ever seen. I think we knocked, what was that? Jack Trudeau was a backup. Tony Eason was a starter. I think we knocked them out 2 or 3 times in the game. And Jeremiah Castile had, 3 interceptions?
4.
Jeez. We had 4. Robbie off that last one.
Yeah, Rodney Jones intercepted the play after the big sack, and it pretty much sealed the game.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. All right, let's start at the beginning. Talk about your dad. Your dad was an influential person on a lot of kids. He was a coach. Talk about growing up in Elba, Alabama, and did you play any other sport besides football?
Oh yeah. Well, I didn't really grow up in Elba. Daddy was a baseball, football player at Troy State. Actually had a scholarship at Florida State. Had to come back when it burned and went to Troy State. But started his career down in Winter Garden, Florida, where I was born. And then he took a job in Geraldine, Alabama, up on Sand Mountain next to Fort Payne. He coached there for 6 years, and then he went to T.R. Miller in Bruton for 6 years, won a state championship in '69, and then we moved to he was at Charles Henderson High School for 5 years. And then we left there and went to Elba. He was 18 years at Elba. I didn't grow up in Elba, wasn't born there, but I claim Elba's my home. That's my kind of, that's where I put. But I had Bruton and Troy. I had 6 years with kids there too. So I get invited to class reunions at all 3 schools. So.
Oh my gosh. All right. So talk about getting recruited by Coach Brian, and did your dad and him have talks? I'm sure Coach Brian knew your dad was a great coach, but talk about that transition and
Daddy was real good friends with Bill Oliver, and but nobody recruited me. Alabama, I wasn't even in the as they say, I didn't have a dog in the hunt. And Daddy played at Troy State. Charlie Bradshaw was at Troy State. Bobby Bowden, this was 1978, my senior year, 78, 79. Bobby Bowden, was good friends with Daddy. And I went to Florida. The only football camp I went to back then, Bobby Bowden had, and they were recruiting me. I was an all-state tight end, middle linebacker, all-state. And and then Southern Miss. That Auburn, I went to a game at Auburn, I think versus Miami back in the day as a recruit, and pretty much got shunned after that, and was told by Auburn I was too small.
Yeah,
I didn't meet their standards. So, But Alabama coach Jeff Rousey was our recruiting coach, and at the time, my whole senior year, Daddy never heard anything from Alabama. He heard a couple of things from Coach Oliver, and they just. I wasn't on their radar. Okay. So, I didn't care. I just wanted to play football. I grew up with Daddy. I was a manager, trainer. I've taped ankles in 8th, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. He didn't let me play padded or organized football to the 7th grade because I was his manager. He told me years later, I always thought he always said it because it wasn't good coaching. It was because I was the best manager he had. I could fix helmets. I just thought that's what you did as a kid. And he couldn't afford for me not to be at practice and help him during the game. And to this day, in the state of Alabama, I think I'm still the only manager that ever got a personal foul. When we were at Charles Henderson, we were playing Enterprise, and I was a water boy, and a running back from Enterprise ran out of bounds. You know how you roll up out of bounds. And me and my other managers backed up. And the player looked at me, and he threw the football at me and hit me. So what did I do? I threw my water bottle at him. And guess what? Personal, the manager, the 7th grader. Well, then when I looked down, I was on about the 20-yard line. I looked down the sideline, and the referee was telling my dad, and he said, he did what? And he looked at me. I jumped the fence and ran and got on the bus. I was so scared. And two of the other coaches had to come get me off the bus because Daddy was Hall of Fame. I mean, he's Hall of Fame, Wiregrass, Hall of Fame, Alabama, and he only had one losing season in 31 years and 4 state championships and played in it 6 times and had all kinds of offers over the years, but just was very loyal where he was. And so it was a coach's, so Coach Bryant, and Dad were a lot alike, discipline, no nonsense. He lost a job one time because, he told him that one of the booster clubs at a high school, a real big high school, and they asked him, what about the band students and cheerleader parents and all that? And he said, they're important, but the football parents are the only ones that I'm worried about. And they didn't like that,
Right. Oh, well.
So, it was just one of the, he wasn't a politician. Let's put it that way.
No. Told it like it is. It's kind of like Coach Bryant. He was apolitical. Coach Bryant was.
That's right.
He could have ran for governor and been governor. He didn't care.
So anyways, so I was, bouncing around, and we had a really good senior year. We went 8-2. We missed the playoffs back then, the top 4 teams, and the number 1 team in the whole state and this was back in 4A and 4A system. We were one of the smallest 3A schools. Andalusia was the second or third largest 3A schools, and Andalusia had a 57-game winning streak. They hadn't lost a regular season in 5 years.
Wow!
And we played them in Elba, the Big E, at Foggy Bottom. We call the stadium in Elba. They named after my dad now. It's Macwood Field.
Wow!
But we played them. And you remember Doug Collins, the number one player in the whole state. He was, top player. Well, all the coaches, Jeff Rousey included, all came to that game. And guess what? We upset them that night. We beat them pretty handedly. And I had 14 tackles. I threw an end-around pass. I caught a pass for a touchdown. Don Horsted was on that team. He had about 130 yards rushing. Gary Bradshaw ended up going to Troy State. A lot of us there was about 16 college coaches there to see Doug that night. Okay.
Wow.
And that's just the way it was back then. Coaches went to games. Yep. Doug was the one player in the state. Everybody was after him. He'd pretty much committed to Alabama, but, nobody committed back then. This was the last game in November. And so anyway, we had a big party that night, and we were in all the newspapers and had a big time. Well, the next day, had a recruiting trip. Me and Mom and Dad went over to Hattiesburg, and guess what? Florida State's playing Southern Miss, which was another one of the schools. Coach Carmichael and Daddy were good friends, and they were big. They're after me real hard, and so I went to that game as a recruit. And I liked Florida State. I liked Southern Miss, and had a great recruiting trip. And of course, after the game, a hostess picked me up trip and took me to a party, for all the recruits. Mm-hmm. And well, guess what? She picked me up in a white 1978 T-top vet. And of course, being a knucklehead like me, I was usually checking out the girls. She was nice looking, right. I think. But then she said, here's old redneck from Elba, right? She asked me if I wanted to drive. Dude, I drove around Hattiesburg like I was the king of rock and roll. I was excited, you know what I mean, about Southern Miss. And Mom got her graduate degree at Southern Miss, so
you were leaning towards Southern Miss.
Yeah, Southern Miss, Florida State. Coach Bowden had only been there 2 years. He hadn't really made the turn. I liked Florida State. Troy State. That they were good friends with Daddy, and they thought it was probably going to come down to Troy State and Southern Miss. Well, Tuesday night, following the big win we had, and after that weekend, the Kiwanis Club of Elba, being a big town of Elba, they're still celebrating the victory over Andalusia. The Kiwanis Club did a cookout for the team to come and the city to come and enjoy the celebration and all that. And we did, no biggie, so I got home that night. Mom and Dad are sitting on the couch, right? And they're got tears in their eyes. And my sister was at Troy State, 2 years older, and I thought something was wrong. I walked in about 10:30 that night, and I think I saw my dad cry twice. Old school dads, like him, coaches. He just very seldom cried.
Right.
He was teared up. Mom was teared up. And I thought, well, what's wrong with Janet, my sister? And they said, no, everything. Sit down. We got to talk. I said, what's wrong with Granddaddy? What's wrong with Pawpaw? What's wrong with Granny? What is wrong? And Mom couldn't talk. And Daddy said, Coach Bryant called. I said, for what? And he goes, they want you to come to Alabama. Mom said I turned white as a sheet. I think I passed out. Seriously. I didn't know what. I said, what? Well, I was stunned. And he said he's going to call back at 11:15. And the old rotary dial phones we had on the wall that shook the whole wall when it rang.
Right.
And sure enough, boom, that phone rang. Yep, Coach, he's right. And then Mom said in about a 3 or 4 minute conversation, I said 2 words. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And so, but back then they would offer you today. And if they found somebody better next week, they would just say, hey, we're going to somebody else. There wasn't lawsuits. There wasn't all the big hype of, I committed and, you've got to sign me or I'm suing you, that kind of crap that goes on today. But Daddy told me, he said, don't talk about it. We're all proud. We're all going, but let's wait till it comes time, for signing day. And we did signing day. I think in 79, our class of 79 of 27, 28, 16 of us were from the state of Alabama. We had a big class from the state, and we all went to Tuscaloosa. And the day before I went up there, we finally told some people in the newspaper in Elba, which is a weekly newspaper, small town. It came out on Thursday. Ricky Millars owns it. To this day, he'll still come up and punch me on the shoulder because I didn't tell him until the day before I was going up there, and he made me dress in a suit, sit at my dad's desk, and act like I was signing so he could write his story. He was so mad, and it was just, I told my girlfriend, my best friend, and it was just one of those things I didn't want to boast about because I wasn't sure if they were going to take it back.
Right.
Signing day, all of us signed in Tuscaloosa, came back, went straight to Panama City, and enjoyed myself.
Wow. Man, talk about some moments there at Bama. I know the highlight was Coach Bryant's last game against Illinois. We beat him 17-15. But to talk about some more highlights, maybe some of your great teammates that you had, and then we're going to get into the coaches that were one of a kind, all of them.
Oh, yeah. Freshman year, came in, and the 78 class had just won the national championship. They beat Penn State. And that class of 78 was redshirted, the whole class, before they got on campus. The 76, 78. I was Mike Pitts, Will Cox, Jackie Klein, Robbie Jones. All those guys were 78 class that were redshirted. So we got there in 79, and the NCAA said you can't redshirt freshmen. So as a freshman on a stacked, loaded team, we had, counting our freshman class and the redshirt freshman class, there was almost 31 freshmen on that 79 team.
Wow.
Okay. Now, starting out, like anybody else, you started out on the scout team. I was playing middle linebacker. Coach Rousey was my position coach at that time. And third, freshman, if you could play, you played. Jeremiah Castile was in that class. He got in a lot, and special teams. If you could get ease up there, I was back up on the punt team, kickoff team, and then the third game. We opened up with Georgia Tech in Atlanta because we had the Turd Bowl, if you remember, on Wednesday. I think when you got there, we were still doing it, but we would have a scrimmage. You'd send in the starters and the backups. On Wednesday, Coach Bryant would say, somebody's going to earn a travel team spot by the way you practice today. And so we had that Wednesday scrimmage. And, when you first got there, if you remember, Goose Tree wouldn't put a stripe on your helmet or a number on your helmet. You just had a red helmet with a piece of tape with your last name, right? So the coach were. Well, on Wednesday, we had a scrimmage. I had a really good scrimmage. And I wasn't on the travel team. Travel team came out on Monday, came out on Thursday, and then Friday at noon was the final, travel team.
Right.
And this was a away game, So Wednesday I had a good scrimmage. I went to my locker on Thursday for the little walkthrough, semi-practice we had. And I had a stripe on my helmet. I was so excited, dude. I called home. And, of course, collect calls back then. You didn't have cell phones. And my dad was like, really? You calling because you got a stripe? And I said, yeah, I earned a stripe. Friday morning, I went by the locker room and I had a number on my helmet, 89. And I'm like, oh my God, what is going on? I was the first one to Bryant Hall at lunch to see the travel team, and I made the travel team. I made the list. But the bad thing was, Trip, first time I ever flew on a plane was the Georgia Tech game.
Oh my gosh. Hey, yeah. Russ, when I got there, they just won back-to-back titles in 1980, my freshman year. And I went, holy shit, what am I doing here? The level was so high. It took me 2 years to get that jersey and get on the Georgia Tech game, the first game of the year. It took me 2 years to make the travel squad.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I made the try, but I didn't play in the game, but I was so excited. I peed on myself twice on the airplane, scared to death, because I love flying now, but back then it was but then I didn't know how much I would play because we were loaded at linebacker. And I think it was a Baylor game. Yeah, it was the second or third game of the season. About the second quarter, we beat Baylor pretty handily. And Coach Rousey came and said, "Get ready, you're going in." I went, "What?" I was like, "Okay." So I got as soon as I hit the field, as soon as I came off, Coach Rutledge grabbed me and said, "You're on the kickoff team and the punt team." So as soon as I got on the field, once back then, once you started playing, you were, they tried to find a spot. They didn't, and of course the red shirt rules were a lot stricter then than they are now. I think now you can play 3-4 games and they still red shirt. Back then, one play, you were done. But we couldn't redshirt freshmen anyway. So they were trying to find some of us that were freshmen, but we were so loaded. It was just hard to get on the field. So I got an opportunity, ended up playing in that national championship year, 79. We went undefeated, played in, I think, 7 games, traveled in all but 2 games. I didn't make 2 away games, during the middle of the season. But other than that, I traveled every game from then on, from my sophomore to my senior year. Wow. And then like I said, I was with Coach Rousey, and then come back in the spring, and I went into the Sugar Bowl against Arkansas that year as the number 2 inside linebacker. I'd moved up the ladder. And then I came back in the spring. I was the number 5 outside linebacker. Oh, my God. Dude. Man, I was ready to give up. I was just powerful. I went from Rousey to Sylvester Croom. I went from being the number 2 behind Randy Scott to basically the 3rd substitute behind EJ Jr. and Gary Morrow. But little did I know, because I could play both inside and out. Sophomore 1980, after that year, we lost 3 outside linebackers. All were seniors. Morrow, De Niro, and EJ Jr., first-round pick. And then all that was left was me and Pitts. And Pitts was a redshirt sophomore. I was a true sophomore. And subsequently, I started the next 24 straight games for 2 years.
Wow. Any lessons learned, hard lessons learned during your career?
Oh, yeah, big time. I mean, that was a tough time. And, Rousey talked to me, Coach Croom, he talked to me a little bit. Some of the other, I was just pouting, I just couldn't understand.
Feeling sorry for yourself. I was the same way. In my 4th year, junior year, I'm ready to start. I played for Coach Ryan his last year and Perkins his first year. I'm ready to take the starting job. And they give it to a true freshman ahead of me. Yeah. Holy cow, man. I was ready to quit and blaming everybody. And I was in a bad spot, man. And Dana helped me pull out of it. And, and then I ended up, playing quite a bit and starting my senior year. But they just didn't give spots away at Alabama, man. You had to earn your way before you stepped on the field.
Oh yeah, and but the thing is, you had to earn it every day.
Every day.
I mean, one week you go out there and you could be you might be the next guy, and of course, all in my junior year, we won the 315. That was 1981. We became we won the SEC, and we really had a couple opportunities. We lost a couple kind of iffy games, but my stats were pretty good. And then Coach Croom moved to inside linebackers in 82, our last year, and Steve Hale came in and took over us. But me and Coach Hale were joking one time, about my stats. And I finally had to tell him, I said, well, look, if you came up to the line of scrimmage and you looked at our defensive line, and I played me and Randy Edwards, he was the defensive tackle on the right side. I was the right outside linebacker. You look over there on the other side, Randy was 6'3", 250, 260, nothing big. Well, you look on the other side over there, you had Mike Pitt, 6'6". You had Jackie Klein, 6'6", 280. You had a wall on one side. Where would you run at? So
Did you know? I think it was Coach Rousey. Russ. Maybe another coach told me this, and I was watching Pat McAfee, and Bruce Arians was on there and said the exact same thing. Coach Bryant made every single substitution at every position for every game that he ever coached. Nobody does that now. Not one head coach does that. But he made every single substitution in every game at every position. Did you know that?
Oh, yeah. Did you ever see Adi Steen posted it one time? He had a copy, white vanilla folders. Coach Bryant would write the starting lineups and the depth chart on a white vanilla folder, folded up, had it in his coat pocket. And that's how he tracked who he wanted to play, when he wanted to play. But it was handwritten. He had it hand. And Adi posted one time, he had a picture of one that he had kept somehow, over the years. And it had everybody had check marks and X's by your name,
Hey, you know what? Coach TJ Weist showed it on my show on last Saturday and last Tuesday night. Okay. Showed Coach Ryan's rolled up vanilla envelope with all the names and on it. He's got that actual one, Russ.
Okay, well, every game he had one of those. He had one. He did. And what he did with them after that, I don't know. I think Adi was supposed to throw it away or whatever, but he might have kept them somehow. Adi got a copy of it, but a couple people did. I've seen them posted over the years. But one of the things Coach Bryant always did too, which was always neat, if you were the number 2, the third series of the second quarter, you were going in the game. Offense, you get a first down, you stay in the game. Defense, if we got to go in number 2s, didn't matter what was going on in the game, we stopped them. We might get to go back in the next series, but if they got a first down on the first play, the starters came in. Third series of the third quarter, backups came in. Unfortunately, that bit us in the, 82 against Auburn. Bo Jackson, he had 115, 20 yards that year that they supposedly beat, which they didn't, but they just gave it to him because he didn't score over the top because I was at the bottom of the pile. And but anyway, third quarter, third series, Bo gets a 60-yard run. And Coach Bryant turns around and says, "What the heck are y'all doing over here?" And that was that third series of the third quarter. Me, Robbie Jones, Mike Pitts, everybody but Wilcox was still on the field. And Bo breaks 3 tackles, runs 60 yards. I think somebody ran him out of stand gate or somebody ran him out of bounds. But he had 60 yards on one play of 120 yards. Other than that, we had shut him down most of the day. But that was just his rule. He didn't care what the game. He wanted.
He trusted his second and third team players. He trusted them. He would put all 11 guys in at one time, the whole second team in at one time.
Oh yeah, and if you were number 2, you better be ready to play. If you
better be ready.
You went to the game with a mindset as a starter, learning everything. Because if you were slow getting out on the field, or you didn't go out when you were supposed to, the coaches would turn around and go 2s or 1s, and if you were a 2 and they did that and you didn't get out there, you might not play the rest of the year. I mean, he
was brutal, man.
He held grudges big time. He wanted, and it's just like that interview I saw years later at a press conference, and some crazy reporter asked him, how reporters are, they lead into the question with a question. He says, "Coach, well, I know you can't win them all," but Coach Bryant said, "Hold up right there. We're here to win them all. That's our standard," and walked off the stage.
He put so much trust in the second, third players, man. And he went. I remember he threw all 11 guys in against Ole Miss, second game of the year, and I was at right cornerback, right in the middle, right 5 yards from him at 50-yard line. I jumped the 3-step, threw a quick slant, broke on it, broke up the pass. Out come a flag, and Coach Ryan, damn it, everybody out. He took everybody out after one play. You feel like digging a hole in there, man. He was
4K the coach. I mean the quarterback.
Yeah, and it was Jackson. I remember in Jackson, Mississippi, that 82 was last year.
That was hey, we chased him. He was a Johnny Manziel. But, the other thing is when Coach Bryant, his expectations was perfection. It's like, when I dropped that pass against Penn State, had an interception, a pick six. I look up, and we were playing up there as 1981. It was up at Penn State. Todd Blackledge hit me dead in the hands. Ball hit the ground. I look up, 41's running on the field. Jimmy Watts, my back. So running off the field, I'm like in front of 90,000 people. My dad and everybody, he was a coach, so he couldn't go to the games, a lot of them. He was watching it. So I grabbed my hamstring, Paul, so like I was hurt.
I felt so bad for the rest of the second stringers. I felt like digging a hole and crawling in, man.
My dad goes, "You hurt?" And I said, "Yeah, my God." And then, the offensive linemen, if they jumped off sides, your backup came in. And then, of course, Jimmy made a mistake 2 plays later, and they sent me right back in. First play I was in, I made a sack, so I cleaned up for it. But he didn't want to miss. His expectations was perfection, and that's what his standard was.
Absolutely. Bama's team, and let's talk about local, our current team, Bama's team and expectations. In the 1980s, Bama's record averaged 9 wins and 3 losses. Not bad, but the standards were higher at Bama. Coach Stalling came in and set his culture, and they brought back a national title. And then there was a dip after Coach Bryant told friends when he retired that there would be a dip in Alabama's play and that the Bama fans would not understand why. Now, this is history repeating itself, Russ. We had the 2 best coaches in the history of college football. The odds are astronomical to have the 2 best college football coaches at the one institution. And to expect DeBoer to win 5-6 titles is unrealistic. He might win 1 or 2, but you got to give him time.
Right. I get asked that all the time. And I get, I say, look, it's still the second year. It's still not his team. He still has to grow. You got to remember, Saban lost to Louisiana Monroe his second year or whatever, first or and they put a U-Haul in his front yard. But and I tell people, I said, look, you win 9-10 games at Auburn and go to a bowl, they're going to give you a contract extension. Same way with Ole Miss or Mississippi State. At Alabama, if you're not competing, you don't have to win it every year, but you gotta. Their expectations is competing for a championship, not winning, not just winning, going to a bowl game, competing for SEC national championship. That's the expectations. Unfortunately, for DeBoer, if he, and I heard on one of the talk shows that somebody interviewed him and they asked him, "Do you really understand what you're up against?" And he said, "Oh yeah." And whoever the talk show host says now said, "Oh no, he didn't have any idea, what he was up against." And you got to remember, 4 or 5 coaches wouldn't even interview for the job. All the people who we thought would probably get it, nobody wanted to follow Coach Saban and Coach Perkins. I coached his, as a student coach and was in the staff room with him. And years later, I saw him interviewed and said it's the worst job he ever taken. He just wasn't ready for that, emotion, all the things, expectations, the fans, the recruiting. And that's why he went to the NFL right out of the gate. And, but, following a coach, you got to, one, you got to tip your hat to DeBoer because he took the job. 2, is it going to, can he turn it around to the expectations of the fans? It's going to be tough because our expectations are championships, period.
Right.
Alabama's not about winning 8 games and going to a bowl game. It's championships, being contenders, being talked about. And unfortunately, it's not the fact that Alabama has dropped off in how good they are. It's other teams have gotten better, back. And people always ask me about the comparison, about Coach Bryant, Coach Saban, and the only comparison I ever tell them is 2 different eras. One, Coach Saban was the best in his era. Coach Bryant was the best in his era. When Saban, 17 years, I think I read a stat where he went through 50 head coaching changes, 50. Coach Bryant in 23 years went through 15. coaches back then. Well, think about it, Paul. You know, Mark Ingram came from Indiana? No, Ohio, right there at the right there. And if Woody Hayes would have been there, you think Mark Ingram would have come to Alabama, or Bo Schembechler at Michigan, or Najee from California? If John McKay was at USC, I mean, he sent O.J. Simpson to recruit Lenny Patrick. You know, before O.J. had his bad stuff, but I mean, he was a big time.
Well,
so it was. Daryl Royal.
I think it was Russ. I think it was harder to win back then because he only had, like you mentioned even earlier, 17 out of the 20 recruits are from Alabama. Now they recruit national. He's got more resources to do it with. He's got better, more assistance, more help. Coach Bryant was doing everything back in the day, and he didn't have. All these analytics and all these strength coaches. He didn't have all of that going on, but football has changed so much, and you
got, like I just said, with those coaches, you couldn't recruit all over the country. Now when Saban got there, all those big schools that from Penn State, USC, Michigan, Ohio, all those were going through coaching changes. So those kids can, that's how we got those kids from all over the country. If the local schools were hot, I mean, look at Florida. Okay. When Bobby Bowden was there, very seldom did you have a kid come out of Florida. They went to Florida State. When Johnson was down at Miami, they all went to Miami.
Right.
And Bill Curry was at, not Bill Curry, but Spurrier was at Florida. They drew all the top kids right there. Now Florida kids, I think I saw a stat a couple of years ago, the top 20 teams in the NCAA all have one kid from Florida on their team.
Plus there was, people talk about NIL making it parity. It hasn't happened yet. Let's face it. It's coming though. Because there was, back in the 70s and 80s, there were multiple head coaches that have won national titles. Up until Day's title last year, there's only two, count them, two head coaches, at Kirby and Dabo, the only head coaches, and now Day. So, Russ, there's only three. There's 140 Division I football playing schools, but only 2 or 3 head coaches have won titles. Come on.
Yep.
Come on, man. They don't grow on trees. They're not easy to spot. They're not a dime a dozen, these elite coaches. They're very far and few between.
They always will be. And the programs that they go to, just like, Alabama, Coach DeBoer, there was a lot of questions about him, but, fortunately or unfortunately, he's the one that took the job, or and what he accomplished, we'll see. But the ahead of us is very tough, and it could be very brutal. And the recruiting is now really been hit with sidewinders because some of the top kids are not going to the schools that will develop them and make them. They're going because mom and dad are getting money.
Chasing the money. They're all chasing the money. So that's gonna separate things out. I think there's gonna be, you mark my words, in 10, 15 years, there's gonna be 7 coaches that have won national championships, not just 2 or 3 anymore. Last question. The book, the best book I've read on Coach Bryant, my number one is Alan Bear's book, The Last Coach. Dr. Galen McCullough wrote a great one, The Long Shadow of Paul Bear Bryant. Which one's your favorite? Which one's your favorite book?
Dr. McCullough's book's probably one of the, I know Dr. McCullough very well. He's from Enterprise, and he lives down here close to me, down in Gulf Shores, and I talked to him not long ago, and he was real in depth, and I remember seeing him in our locker room, and we talked about it years later, and Coach Bryant would call him when he didn't feel good, and Dr. McCullough would say, "Look, call your cardiologist, call your regular doctor. I'm a dermatologist. and Coach Bryant always called Dr. McCullough, and he was in our locker room a couple of games at the end.
Yeah.
And I noticed him in there, but I didn't know why,
Right.
Because
It was a good book. It's a great book. Insights to that. Russ, man, thanks so much. I got one last question. Who would be a great guest? Who would be a great guest for me to have on the show?
You probably got tons of them, but one of the guys locally over here that I always cut up with, and I'm still trying to sue him for harassment when I was a freshman. Vince Booth is over here, and Vince was in that 76 class. He was on the 77, which should have been the national champion against Ohio State. They beat the snot out of Woody Hayes, and Woody Hayes said the Pittsburgh Steelers couldn't even beat Alabama. That's the year that Texas was 1, Notre Dame was 5. They beat them in Scottsboro. They gave it to Notre Dame over Alabama beating the number 2 team. Yeah. But on that team, the 78 and the 79 as a starter.
Wow.
And he lives over here. Super guy.
Yeah. Awesome. Thanks so much, Russ. It's great to see you, brother. Let's go out and play some golf soon.
I'm coming up. Well, it's kind of north of you, but I'm playing in the Escambia County Alumni Golf Tournament next Thursday. Walter Lewis called me yesterday, and
did he really?
Yeah, you might want to get Walter on your show. He comes down this way all the time.
I had Walter. Check out the show. Matter of fact, I'll replay it. But you can archive some of my shows are archived on Facebook and YouTube.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Oh, Walter was great on the show.
Yeah,
man.
we grew up in Bruton. We played Little League baseball together, and then played at Alabama. So I told him, like I always tell him, don't turn your back on me. I'll have a flashback and take you out. So.
Oh my God! He came down to Pensacola for our booster club last month or a couple months ago too. Yeah, so it was great to see him. He was funny on the show, man. He was hilarious. Walter was always so serious, I mean, I had my best conversations, with Walter years after he retired, years after he was gone.
Oh yeah, same here. We've talked more since we were non-players. When we played, we talked. I don't remember how we making a conversation with him. He was he was a freshman, when Don Jacobs got hurt and Ken Coley got hurt, he had to play, remember he got stowed in there as a freshman, and then his sophomore year, Coley hurt, and Alan Gray struggles, and they had to put him in there again. He didn't come. It took me a while to get him on the show, right? Because he's kind of shy a little bit. But then, and I thought it was because he wanted to change the names to protect the guilty, right? That's what I thought it was. So I'm not going to say any names, right? But it was my roommate, man, my sloppy roommate one time. And he comes on and tells me that my roommate, and he says his name. I wasn't even going to say his name, but Walter says his name. And Coach Bryant cut him from the tower at the first conditioning drill. Remember that first conditioning thing we had at the beginning of the year? He cut him from he cut him from the tower, and Walter's saying his name, and I'm like, Walt, okay, Walt. Yeah.
Anyway, it was brutal, man. Great stuff. Great to see you, Russ.
All right, let's be in touch.
All right, bud. Talk to you soon. So long. Russ Wood, what a great player, overachiever, man, and he's a great dude. Lives in the area. So I hope you enjoyed the show. If you like it, make sure you go to my YouTube channel, subscribe, like it, share, and follow, all that good stuff. Stay tuned for these great messages. Without these sponsors, this just wouldn't be possible. Have a great sports weekend, everybody. See you soon. So long.
When it comes to buying your next car, truck, or SUV, you need a team that puts you first. Here at the Sandy Sansing dealerships, we're proud to serve Pensacola and the Gulf Coast with the best selection, trusted service, and deals that work for your family. Just like great coaches build great teams, Sandy Sansing builds lasting relationships with every customer who walks through our doors. Because when it comes to finding your next vehicle, there's only one name to remember. Sandy Sansing can.
That's you trying to fix the plumbing yourself to save a few bucks. Doing things yourself doesn't always end well. The same goes for insurance. That's why Auto Owners works with local independent agents who tailor coverage to meet your needs and offer discounts for life, home, car, and business insurance. Because sometimes you need a professional to get the job done right. That's simple human sense.
Are you riding around in a filthy vehicle? Dirty car no more. Visit Ronnie's Car Wash today to get it shining in no time. They have 3 convenient locations with another coming soon. The unlimited monthly wash packages start as low as $14.95 per month with free vacuums, multi-purpose spray, and towels. Visit them in Gulf Breeze, Navarre, Fort Walton, and soon Crestview. Don't wait, wash today. Be sure to see Ronnie's Car Wash on Facebook to see the latest specials and discounts. You'll be riding and shining in no time.
When it comes to buying your next car, truck, or SUV, you need a team that puts you first. Here at the Sandy Sansing dealerships, we're proud to serve Pensacola and the Gulf Coast with the best selection, trusted service, and deals that work for your family. Just like great coaches build great teams, Sandy Sansing builds lasting relationships with every customer who walks through our doors. Because when it comes to finding your next vehicle, there's only one name to remember. Sandy Sansing can.
75 years of service and high tech today. It's Pensacola Glass Company at 433-8348. High tech is a term often applied to advanced services and products in today's marketplace. And today, glass is much more than a simple painted brittle, see-through stuff we hit baseballs through when we were kids. Glass is now a product with unique flexibility in both performance and application. And Pensacola Glass Company is growing right along. That's Pensacola Glass Company at 433-8348.
There's a reason why Hill Kelly in Pensacola is the #1 selling Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram dealer between Jacksonville and New Orleans. While other dealers have taken advantage of a competitive market with higher prices, Hill Kelly has discounted prices to the lowest of the year. And Hill Kelly in Pensacola won't surprise you with excessive charges beyond the selling price. Come see why people from Milton, Pace, Foley, Bay Minette, Daphne, Gulf Shores, Mobile, and beyond are driving to Hill Kelly in Pensacola to buy their next new Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, or Ram. At Hill Kelly, the bottom line price and your satisfaction are what really matter. So before you sign, check the bottom line and make the trip to Hill Kelly in Pensacola to see what true local ownership can do for you. At Hill Kelly Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Highway 29 in Car City, Pensacola. Or shop online 24/7 at HillKellyDodge.com. When it comes to bottom line pricing, nobody beats a Hill Kelly deal. Nobody.